Bob! Howdy hey, this is Frakbox, and I'm here just playing Pokemon Crystal in Italian, a language I do not speak. And as soon as I get ready to start this next episode, this guy calls me, because I was just kind of sitting there. But like I said in the last episode, this episode, I will be using Slowpoke in order to defeat the Fighting-type gym. So that should be exciting. And after we defeat the Fighting-type gym, we will be given the TM for Fly, if I remember correctly. Okay, so we should be good to go. I don't think they're going to be much stronger than the last one, if I remember correctly. So we'll just give it a chance. Wow, those guys are buff. Like this, like that part is ridiculously buff. So Hitmonlee is actually, as far as the Hitmonlee, Hitmonchan, I like Hitmonlee a little bit more. I don't know, I just like the aesthetics of it a little bit better. It looks like a stronger Pokemon, if that makes sense. So, but or maybe I'm sort of biased because technically kicking is probably a more effective way to actually fight, because your legs are stronger than your arms. So it just kind of makes sense to me that like Hitmonlee would be much stronger. I don't know. It's just, you know. Oh, we're gonna learn Inhibitore. Is that sleep? Okay. Let's use the handy-dandy Google Translate to figure out what this is. Inhibitore. Oh, I didn't have this pulled up yet, so Inhibitore. Inhibitor. What level are we? What the heck? Slowpoke moves Gen 2. we're gonna cheese this. Cause okay, so disable. Okay. I think disable's a useful move. Is it more useful than meditation? Once we forget it, we won't be able to relearn it. I'd say so. I think disable's much more useful than meditation. So, okay, let's see here. I think this guy is going to immediately fight us. Yep, there we go. It's too bad that they didn't include double battles yet in this. Yeah, I mean, double battles are one of those things that, I don't know. I was about to say something I don't know that I agreed with, but, oh, this guy has Hitmonchan. I guess that makes sense. They're the opposites of each other, I guess. But yeah, they could have totally had like a double battle here. But I guess they just didn't feel like programming it in or didn't have enough time or something. I'd like to actually see like if there's a documentary about like the different features they had, like the makers of this game. Like if there was some explaining the different things behind the game. I really like documentaries. I actually, on my Discord, I have a specific section for documentaries. Whenever I find something interesting, I'll usually post it there. So we have like a section for just documentaries in general, which is more just informative videos. Or documentaries, like full-length documentaries that I find. But I also have like video game documentaries for informative videos about video games specifically. So before we had it set up where it was just, you know, all documentaries went in one section, but I think an important distinction needs to be made between like gaming documentaries, informative videos about video games, and informative videos about like everything else. The Discord channel for my YouTube channel that serves my YouTube channel, it's gaming focused, so we have to make sure that we have the right channels available for, you know, people who would want to use it. I really like systems. I really like implementing systems. So I like to make sure that like different roles are set up, or that people feel as though when they jump into something that, oh, this is already set up for me to do exactly what I want. The unfortunate thing is that a lot of systems are kind of behind the scenes. So there's so much complexity going on to everything that I'm doing that I'm keeping track of, but nobody's ever going to see all that, so it's really hard to see. Like, I'm a big picture kind of guy. So for those wondering, if you subscribe to the Myers-Briggs, which a lot of people don't, I don't really blame them. I don't know that I like fully subscribe to it either, but every single time I've taken that test over the years, it's always come out INTJ, which is interesting. Typically, a lot of famous people that they associate with the INTJ personality type, or they claim is within the INTJ personality type, people like Vladimir Lenin was an interesting one. Also, did they say Stephen Hawking? Stephen Hawking, Mark Zuckerberg. Who else? Who would be that? Tesla. Also, I'm pretty sure, for good or for ill, what's his name? Elon Musk, I think, is also one of those stereotypical INTJs. So, not that a lot of those people have necessarily... I mean, they're all kind of like nerds, if that makes sense. I don't know that I want to like say that I could be counted among those folks. But when I look at like histories of their life, I'm like, oh yeah, I totally get why they did those sorts of things. Oh, Isaac Newton is another one. I feel a lot of camaraderie to Isaac Newton. The more I read about his life, I'm like, okay, yeah, I get why he made those decisions. That makes a lot of sense. He was kind of a shut-in and kind of, you know, just didn't want to... He wanted to do his thing. I don't know, I feel a lot... When I read about, like, Tesla, or when I read about, like, Isaac Asimov, another famous, supposedly INTJ, I don't know if that's, like, there's a bias there, where it's like, okay, well, I learned that they're an INTJ, so I look for that sort of thing, but... this is kind of one of these things where... I mean, I guess it is kind of hard to remove myself from my bias, but the more I look into their histories, the more I'm like, yeah, I kind of get why they did that. But in the case of, like, say, Isaac Asimov, for example, when I read through, like, Foundation, because I read his Foundation book, I still have yet to read the rest of the books in Foundation, but it's just... The way he writes is just the way that I think, if that makes sense. So it's like, I'm reading this book and it's just so enthralling because I'm like, wow, this is like exactly the type of overarching detail that I would want from a story. So it's... I don't know if there's anything necessarily to the INTJ, like, Myers-Briggs personality type thing, but... Maybe it just works for certain people more than it works for certain other people. Maybe I'm more stereotypically in that. I don't know. Maybe there's something to be said for, like, am I deciding that this is my personality based off of what I know about this, or is it descriptive or prescriptive? Maybe I'm pronouncing that wrong. Did I, like, decide this for myself? And now that I'm aware of this concept, I'm, like, giving myself this personality, or, you know, am I really this way, I guess. So as I've gotten older, I think I've gotten more, like, I'm now able to, like, be myself in a way that I wasn't really, like, because I guess I'm now 30, now that I think about it. I'm not in my 20s anymore. During most of my 20s, I was really just kind of operating in a way where I think people wanted me to act, I guess. I had to kind of pay attention to what I thought people wanted me to do. And now I'm kind of in a way where I'm just kind of, like, going to act the way I want to act. I'm going to be respectful, of course, but I'm not going to, like, pretend I'm something I'm not, you know? And I think I'm more, like, at peace with who I am as a person. And so I think now that I can kind of look back over my 20s and say, okay, well, I think that wasn't really prescriptive. I think that was descriptive, based off of my knowledge of, because now I'm more falling into like my normal, who I actually am, rather than who I think people want me to be. And I think there's, I don't know, I could probably have a whole discussion about this, and maybe this is a conversation best had with a detractor of the Myers-Briggs, because I've noticed that the Myers-Briggs really gives me a lot of context for why I think a lot of the way that I do. It's one of those things where maybe people have always sort of been like, you're like a robot. You're like a, I had a lot of girlfriends in the past, when I was in my early 20s, who were like, you talk like a robot. You talk like, this. And I'm like, or for instance, you sound like you're angry when to me it just sounds like I'm speaking, like I'm just speaking neutrally, or like I'm happy but I sound angry, or something like that. But or I have like the best goodwill and intent towards people, and they might assume one thing or assume another, when I'm like, wow, how did you get that from that? Like I'm just explaining what I think in kind of a neutral way. And I don't usually give unsolicited advice. Like I don't try to overstep my bounds or anything. I have a lot of social anxiety that way, so I don't like to tell people how to live their life. But it's I don't know, as I sort of read more about the INTJ like personality type, I went, wow, I'm like really a stereotypical like version of this. And it's not like, I'm aware of what people say about it, about like, it's kind of like what's the word I'm looking for, astrology, is that the right term for it? Like astrological signs or whatever. People figure out what sign they are and they try to like fit themselves into that, personality type, when there's no way possible that like what month you're born in will affect your personality, in that like the stars have no way of influencing your personality that way. I understand that concept, and I realize that like Myers-Briggs, for example, it has a lot of flaws, and it's not something that I like. It's deep down my inner core, like I believe this do or die sort of thing. It's been useful for me to kind of think about it in a way like, if this is my personality type, hypothetically, how can I use this to make sure that I'm better understood and to make sure that I better understand people? And I think from that perspective, using it as more like a tool rather than like a prescription for like how I should like operate my life always, just using it as just a general like, okay, if this, then maybe I should consider this, maybe I should consider this person's feeling in this way, and using it as that sort of tool, I think is useful. But obviously you have to be very careful not to make sure that you're not letting it be your life, and if something comes along that like proves it wrong, you're not like, oh man, like, well, I'm gonna believe this regardless of what you say, so it's because I'm very much not that kind of person. Like, it's one of those things where I'll like, when I say something, for example, I'm kind of hoping that somebody comes out and like proves me wrong, because then I learn something. I've never really seen disagreement as something that is necessarily negative, if that makes sense. Like, I can have a disagreement with somebody in a completely positive way, because I just learned something. So I don't know. That's that, I guess. It's also, I think, like, the spoken word. I think I'm better at just talking now that I've been like forced to talk with people, given my professions, than I am at explaining myself in text. Because in text, I can definitely see how I come across as kind of a jerk, actually, when in in the spoken word, I can more get across like the nuance of what I'm saying, or maybe I'm somewhere like on the spectrum, on the autism spectrum, if that makes sense. I've never really gotten tested for that, but I have a strong feeling that I may actually be somewhere on the autism spectrum, like ever so slightly. I know that I don't know if my brothers. My brother's mentioned this. So my brother has like Asperger's. So I mean, it's not unprecedented. I don't know if that kind of stuff runs in families or anything, but I mean, I definitely have some knowledge of how like the autism spectrum works. I've worked in fields, so I've worked with adults with developmental disabilities, so I definitely understand. And as somebody, given that, the fact that I've worked with adults with developmental disabilities, with the fact that I have a lot of friends who have Asperger's, the fact that I have a brother that has Asperger's, I don't really say that lightly, because I definitely know kind of what that means. I know what that implies. I don't, and I'm not really saying it strongly either. I'm saying I have a suspicion. Maybe I should get like an actual test done to prove whether or not I'm actually on the autism spectrum. But I strongly suspect that I am. And that's about that. So I guess that's my life story, and let's go ahead and heal this Ampharos. So let's give you this medicine. So not really sure what to talk about after all that, but here we go. So in the next episode, I'm pretty sure we're just going to face this gym leader. I've kind of talked myself into a corner here. Did she just... Okay. She just... See, this was interesting about this lighthouse. The only way to get down from there is literally to like jump off of the lighthouse, like jump from the previous floor. That's not a very good lighthouse, and that's also not how lighthouses typically work. It's literally just for game purposes that it has to work that way. But before we face that next gym leader, I'm going to pick up some antidotes, because that seems to be something that I'm having trouble with. I have a lot of money, and I don't really have anything to do with it, so we're going to just buy things. I'm probably going to buy more things off-screen, and then when we come back to it, again, we're going to face a gym leader. So this is Frakbox, and have a great day. Thanks for watching.